Support for this podcast comes from the patrons at patreon.com/FMLFPL. Hello. Alon here, solo at the moment, just doing a little intro for this Fireside. So I spoke to 5 different people about 5 different clubs. Kept it all fantasy relevant as best I could. Just gonna play them in a row, bang, 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 chronologically how I recorded them. So I spoke to Kees from the Devils in the Details podcast on Friday. I spoke to producer Nate before and after the Community Shield. I spoke to Robin from the Together Brighton Hove Albion, TogetherBHA podcast. I spoke to Brandon from the London is Blue podcast, Chelsea podcast, and I spoke to Wendy from the Extra Inch, a Spurs pod. Let's go. Enjoy. Today I'm joined by Kees van Hemmen of the Devils in the Details podcast. How you doing, Kees?
I'm doing well, Alon. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. So let's dive right into some Man United stuff. So first one over the line was Mount. From a fantasy perspective, I think what everyone is wondering is how does Mount affect Bruno's positioning, Rashford's positioning, and each of their outputs as well?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. I think in terms of positioning, Mount predominantly in preseason has played as an 8. He's sort of been he's played deeper than Bruno, but still I would say more advanced than Eriksen played in the same position last season. So for the most part, I don't think it's going to change the spaces that Bruno takes up, or Rashford for that matter. But in general, I can't imagine it being bad for their production. Mount, I think, is a more capable box threat than Eriksen. Eriksen only scored 1 goal last season. I think you can expect Mount to do more than that. I think his set piece threat is pretty similar. Maybe that'll take away from Bruno because Bruno won't get to take set pieces, but he didn't last season either. Beyond that, I think I expect it to be positive. This is a player who's he's an upgrade on Eriksen, and otherwise I don't think he's going to drastically change the role. So it should just mean United have the ball more, United connect attacks more frequently, they can play in behind more, and they score more goals, which obviously is what you're worried about.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess follow up to that is like, do you think he's a fantasy pick, which basically definitionally means goals and assists? Like, do you see him crashing the box in that way since he's so much more athletic than like an old Eriksen, you know?
Yeah, I definitely think it's conceivable. I definitely would expect him to at least match the goals and assists output you got from Eriksen last season, which I think was a goal and 6 assists. That's off the top of my head, but I think that's right. Yeah. I would expect him to have at least that many goals and assists. I would expect more, to be honest. Like I said, I think he's a bigger box threat. I think he's an equally capable set piece taker. And those are the 2 things that you're going to see him, the 2 ways you're going to see him contributing. And I do expect Mount to play higher up the field than Eriksen did last season, which obviously that's the key variable there.
Right. And so I guess that transitions kind of nicely into like the defensive solidity, and Onana was the next big signing. And I'm just wondering personally, like, where does the defensive stability come from? If like Mount's pushing up, Bruno's pushing up, the forwards are all pushing up, right? Casemiro sometimes just pops up, in the 6-yard box. And does it require that the fullbacks sort of stay reserved, or how do you see the system sort of, keeping it together defensively?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I definitely don't expect the fullbacks to put up crazy goal assist numbers. In general. Yeah. I think part of what allows United to push their midfielders up high, in particular Mount and Bruno, but like you said, Casemiro also scored some crazy goals last season, deep in the opposition penalty area. I think a big part of it is how United use their fullbacks. And a big part of how United use their fullbacks is they aren't as aggressive with them, or they're more selectively aggressive with them in the final third. So definitely truth there. As for Onana, who I think you mentioned just now, and defensive solidity, I do think there's some reason to think that maybe there will be hiccups defensively, especially early on in this coming season. the accepted talking point has been that United are going to try to play higher up the pitch. If that's true, I expect there to be growing pains. Like, this is a side that had a relatively low defensive line last season. They did press high, but they also were pretty conservative in how they sort of collapsed into a more conservative shape if the press was broken. I expect a change with a goalkeeper who's more proactive. And in general, I expect it to have a positive effect on the defense. But I could definitely see in the first month to 4 to 8 weeks, you could see some kind of goofy goals get conceded. And obviously, that's what you're worried about there.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where in fantasy, it's like, well, that's terrible. And I don't want any of their players, even though it might be a positive net effect on the team. And they might be a better team because of it. And then Højlund, I mean, that's over the line now. And he's just so interesting on, I think, so many levels with like such a small sample size at a big league, such a small sample size in general as just like a pro against other pros. And then also I'm just curious because we saw such a weird sort of distribution of minutes in the number 9 last season with like Wout and how Ten Hag was trying to sort of piece that together, a little Martial minutes, etc. I'm just wondering, like, 2 things, I guess, is what do you expect for Højlund's output? And then also, what do you think that Ten Hag wants out of the number 9 role? Like, does he want more just hold up channel running and the primary goal scorers are going to be the wings and going to be the 8s? Or does he want that also? Does he want him to get shots, be in the box, get on the end of things and stuff like that?
Yeah. So the primary goal scorers in his sides have been center forwards. And the center forwards that he's preferred to use, in particular in league play during his managerial career, have been very traditional box number 9s who put up huge goal scoring tallies. That said, based on comments he made last season, it seemed like maybe he had a slightly different idea about how he wanted this United side to play, given the atmosphere in the Premier League, the tactical atmosphere, the tactical environment. And he seems to show a preference for Martial. I wouldn't be surprised if Martial plays more minutes at center forward this season than I think people are expecting Højlund to start 38 matches. I think.
Yeah.
I don't expect that.
Okay. Interesting.
That said, I do expect Martial to get injured at some point this season, as he tends to do.
Yeah.
And I do also expect Højlund to be the first choice. It's just, if you told me Højlund only started 22 matches this season rather than 32, that wouldn't surprise me that much.
Yeah.
So when you talk about output, that's where I guess as a fantasy FPL player, that's what you're worried about, right? If he doesn't start, you can't use him.
Yeah.
That I think is where it gets complicated. As for when he's on the pitch, and again, this is just me prognosticating because Højlund hasn't been available for preseason. So it's really difficult to say who's going to be preferred. And obviously with that fee, he's going to play major minutes. And if he did wind up starting 30 matches, that wouldn't surprise me either. It's just sort of the sense that I get. I would be astonished if they took this 20-year-old and said, you're playing every match.
Yeah.
But when he's on the pitch, this is another thing that I think is really difficult. Like you said, the sample size is so small.
It's so small.
It's so small. I will say this much. His goal scoring output, given his age, is, I don't want to say it's elite because there is a precedent for players who are better, but the only players who have been better at 19, which is how old he was to start this past season, were like Mbappe and Haaland. And players who wound up were just transcendentally elite on the European stage.
You're talking about in the big 5 leagues, right? Like
in the big 5, yes,
that's
exactly.
the difference, right? Yeah,
exactly. It gets a little different. You see in Dutch football and Portuguese football, you see younger players sprouting up and being productive, especially at those center forward, left wing positions.
Right.
Anyway, I bring that up because there's definitely huge upside here, and often you see strikers taking these big leaps from 19 to 20, from 20 to 21. So these 2 years are going to tell you a lot about Højlund, which obviously I realize is perhaps not what your listeners want to hear. They want to tell you, they want to hear me give a clear answer. There's huge upside here. There's a chance that he is like a goal every other game player this season. I think there's a genuine chance of that. I also think there's a chance where he's a goal every 4 games when he starts.
Right.
The variability there is massive. Like that's the difference between a player that you want to have on your team and a player that you definitely don't want to have on your team.
Yeah, a player you're trying to sell in 3 years or something.
Exactly. Yeah. If you made me guess, I would say, he starts 25 matches.
I would never make you guess, by the way. The range is too wide. Yeah,
I'm happy to do so just because honestly, I'll be happy to listen back to this in a year and see if I was anywhere near.
Yeah.
I'll say he starts 25 matches. He scores, I don't know, a little over less than 1 and 2, but more than 2 and 5. So like,
okay.
Let's say he scores like 11 or 12 goals.
Okay. I think that would be a really productive season, depending on, if the underlyings match that and his shots go up a little bit and stuff like that. I think that would be right. You would take that right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely take that right now. I think that's that's my prediction. So you would hope that would be the 50th percentile outcome.
Yeah.
But I'm a United supporter, so maybe it's a slightly optimistic outlook. I do think I think I'm probably amongst people who are trying to suss out how good Højlund is going to be more conservative than like other United content creators.
Well, I see stuff in our Discord where people are just like, well, he scored this many goals in this many minutes. He's on pace for 20 goals. I'm like, well,
it's not just quite that
simple. Yeah.
It's not that simple. I wouldn't even be like, as a long-term perspective, I wouldn't even be that worried if he scored 8 goals. Like in terms of the investment. Yeah. I wouldn't be happy about it, but what I'd be worried about is if he's, really a dud. Like if it's like a goal every 4, like if that seemingly high ceiling and high end production for what he was in Serie A at 19 is suddenly mediocre at age 20. Yeah. I think you just want to avoid regression, like major regression in terms of his output. If you don't see like progression in terms of the raw stats, I think that's okay this year. Yeah,
I see. Yeah, that's good. That's a very fair, level-headed take, I think. Couple more points to hit. We're gonna keep these short for the most part because I'm gonna compile them all together with other people. But so Sancho false 9, is that a thing? Is that real? Is that just preseason?
So that's a real thing that they have tried in preseason.
Yeah.
I've talked about this on our podcast a little bit. I would be astonished if this is something that they actually try to do in any volume this season. Okay. I don't think he has the skill set to do this at a high level. He had some nice moments. I'm not going to lie. He's played pretty well in preseason. But at a fundamental, I think people have drawn comparisons to Dusan Tadic because he seems to be, a similar player, attacking midfielder / winger who played in a center forward role.
Yeah.
I don't think they're similar players. Tadic is excellent in hold up play. He's really comfortable fighting players in central areas physically. I think anyone who's seen Sancho would say that is not who Sancho is.
Yeah.
And I say that with love because I enjoy watching Jadon Sancho play and I wish the best for him, but I don't think he can cut it at center forward.
I mean, you're the perfect man to make that comparison because you're also an Ajax supporter, right? So it's like
I am not.
You're not? Oh, my bad.
I support their biggest rival, so I happen to watch a lot of them play.
Okay, delete. Never mind. And then curious what you think about Antony coming into the season. I think that he's very under the radar in fantasy because I think partially biased because of the price tag and the goal total wasn't the greatest last season and stuff like that. But he's relatively cheap in fantasy. And so that always perks my interest. I'm like, well, he's taking a lot of shots. He was under his XG. Maybe there's a little regression back to normal there. I'm like, what do you think? Well, where are you at on Antony's projection for the season?
Yeah, I think, and I'll if Antony plays a lot of, if he starts consistently, I expect him to be a lot better than last season from a goals and assists standpoint, which is obviously what you care about here.
Yeah.
Like you said, he was under his XG last season. He's historically been a good finisher, so that doesn't really line up. Especially given the areas he shoots from. Those are areas that he's particularly comfortable shooting from. You'd expect him to connect on more long-range efforts. He did early on last season. He had 3 goals in his first 3 matches, and then just, honestly, I think just had some bad variance and didn't score again in the league. I think he scored 1 more, maybe. Yep. Beyond that, I don't think this is like a game-breaking Premier League player, and I think there's also a risk that Jadon Sancho winds up starting over him consistently at right wing. There's a chance of it. I think, obviously, this doesn't really have much to do with FPL in terms of output, but in terms of whether Antony will play, I do think what makes me think he will hold that spot down when he's healthy is he's so much better defensively out of possession in that right wing role than Sancho is, and really anyone else in the side. So United's team performance and team shape tends to suffer when he's not playing. And that should keep him in the side and give him the opportunity to sort of regress to the mean, like you mentioned. I think another thing to look at is whether his creative output increases. Because last season, obviously, I think 1 assist in the league, maybe.
2 I'm seeing. Yeah.
2. Not a lot of expected goals assisted to back that up. Though at the end of the season, he sort of, it came up a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how Højlund affects that. Yep. It'll be interesting to see how United's higher line affects that. If United are playing higher up the field, Antony can play higher up the field. And that's typically how he played at Ajax. We'll see if those similarities, those potential, migration towards that style of play benefits him. Right. But I think this is like a soft buy, not a hard buy.
Yeah. Seems a little too risky maybe to start at least.
Because you have the risk that he gets benched, A, the risk of injury, B, which is pretty big. Last season, he missed a lot of time, but it was actually the most minutes he's ever played in the European football.
Wow, game. That's crazy.
2,000 minutes, the most he's ever played at league level. And then 3, you have is he even that good goals and assists wise risk? That's a lot of risk.
And while you were talking, I was also sort of like thinking but like that position's role may just not be relied on for goals and assists, really, right? If you're saying that the reason he gets into the team is for receiving the ball, pressing, being an option out wide, keeping the width, and the goals still fall to Rashford and the center forward and Bruno and Mount more than they do him, right?
Yeah. I think even in Antony's like best case outcome this season, let's say he starts like 25 matches, he scores 8, assists 4, maybe, I would say. Like that's like that's like the 75th or 90th percentile outcome, depending on what you think about his true talent.
Right. Okay. All right. I'm going to end this with 2 questions that I'm going to ask everybody. So first question is, what's a good and successful Manchester United season this season? And the second question is, who's leading the team in goals?
Okay. I like that. Okay. A good, again, I'm a pretty, in this vein, pretty conservative as a United fan. I expect the team to play a lot better this season than it did last year. I don't necessarily expect that to be reflected in results and points totals, just because I think United ran a little lucky last year, and I say that as a fan. Yeah. So I would guess I will not be upset if United finish 4th, but significantly improve their week-to-week performance and go deep in the Champions League. I think a good season, a season where you're like, that was real positive progression from last year, is another trophy, a deep Champions League run, and maybe 3rd or 2nd instead of 4th.
Yeah, love it. And then who leads the team in goals?
That's a really hard question.
It's not just Rashford?
I don't think so. I think.
Wow. Okay.
I think, for instance, Bruno is the penalty taker. I think United will win more penalties this season. They won very few last season.
Yep.
He also underperformed his expected goals in open play.
Yep.
And I also think that the side's going to play. Rashford, I think, made up like almost 30 or 40% of the expected goals United created from open play last season. Yeah. I do not expect the way United play to lean so heavily on him this season.
Okay. I'm very interested to hear that because he is super popular in FPL, as you'd imagine, after that
understandably.
season.
This is not me saying like Rashford's not going to be key for this team.
No, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think there's a distinct possibility that you see definitely Bruno lead the team in goals, and in the upper end of outcomes, Højlund.
Yeah.
But you know what? Just to give an interesting answer, I'll say Bruno.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Love that. Love that. Spicy. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on, man. And where can people listen to you and read your work and stuff?
Yeah. So main place to find me is my good friend Aaron Moniz's podcast, Devils in the Details, which you can find at Devils ITD Pod on Twitter. And then you can find my Twitter at Hemmenkees, which is HEMMENKEES on Twitter. And my articles are there. But listen to the podcast. That's the number one thing.
That's the number one thing, and I'll link to both for sure. Thanks so much, man.
Yep. Thank you.
Today I'm joined by a legend of the game, producer Nate. What's up, dude?
What's
and
up,
welcome
guys?
Back.
Yeah. Very
You've been
excited
away
to be
so
back
long.
here. Yeah. Be back involved. Yeah.
Have you been fucking around with your FPL team at all?
A little bit. Yeah. I'm almost caught up on all the FMLFPL pods.
It's a lot.
Tinkering a little bit. That Walsh's Fireside was incredible. With the psychologist guy.
So good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
Dr. Brad was great.
It made so much, just connected the dots in a lot of ways for me. And I was like, okay. It gave me a lot of positive reinforcement for some of the stuff that's felt like, when I do this, I tend to fuck up more. And when I do that, I tend to do well.
Yeah, I think everyone has their own sort of like hypothesis of their positives and their weaknesses. And that is kind of a like more straightforward way of looking at it and be like, oh, I do that thing that he's talking about, or I don't do that thing.
Yeah, that whole field is really interesting, honestly.
Yeah, I need to listen back probably this week before I actually lock in a team.
Yeah.
So let's talk Arsenal, dude. You're the Arsenal guy. I think maybe a good place to start is just the new signings. I mean, I don't think we really need to touch on Timber with regards to fantasy, but curious when you heard, Kai confirmed, Declan confirmed. What did you think fantasy wise? Like, how does Kai fit in? How does Declan fit in? And who's out?
I honestly don't think they make that big of a difference.
Okay.
It's more like I feel like the team as a whole, the squad is just like way better, way deeper. I do honestly think Timber might be fantasy relevant though.
Okay.
Although I didn't even look at his price because he wasn't relevant. Was he 5?
He's 5, which is same as Gabriel, Saliba, Zinchenko.
Yeah, so probably not. But it doesn't seem like Zinchenko is going to start the season.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have another game tomorrow. But he hasn't played a second of preseason, and Timber's been really good at left back, which is really
at
kind
right
of
back.
No, left back.
Oh, left back. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, he's been good everywhere, but he's honestly been more interesting at left back, just because he's the closest thing we've seen to an analog for Zinchenko. We've put Kivior's played there. Xhaka played there. Tierney's tried to do his best, impression. And Kivior is good there. And I think he's going to be definitely an option when Arteta wants him more like sitting left back or whatever. But Timber's been really good. And he has, some attacking quality. And like he can make turns and dart up the pitch and get involved. So it's interesting. And he's probably going to start the season.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I did not. I was not aware of this.
How long that lasts, I have no idea because classic Arteta. We don't know shit about Zinchenko. He just doing all this like press stuff, doing interviews. He's the face of everything, but he hasn't played a fucking second. So I assume it's not, whatever it is, it's not a big deal, but it could be like first month or whatever. It's if Timber's, just amazing the first couple of games, he's not going to just pull him. So yeah, that's potentially an option. It's not going to, you're going to go for nailedness at that price.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue with his price. Like if he was 4-5 and we had an inkling that he was going to start the season, it's like, okay,
that would be real.
Like even if it's only 3 matches, like this might just be worth it because he might nail himself down or something like that.
But it's just you have Ramsdale, Gabriel, and Saliba all there.
Yeah.
The other guys,
do you think he's a pick?
No, I don't think so. I mean, at least at this point, like he's played in that spot, in that left 8 spot.
Yep.
Every time he's played. We haven't seen him play striker, false 9, or sub in for Saka or anything like that, on the right wing. I do think he's going to be way more involved or way more effective than Xhaka was. I mean, Xhaka obviously scored goals and stuff, but he's, more, his link up in the final third is obviously going to be like a million times better than Xhaka's, on top of trying to get on the end of crosses and, deep, those like inside out crosses from Saka and far post finishes and stuff. But to the point of being a fantasy pick, I don't know.
Do you think
there's 3
positively
guys there,
affects like the striker, or positively affects, mostly I assume will be Martinelli at left wing? Like, is he gonna get more out of these guys than they were getting because you think his, like final third or box play is just so much like better probably than Xhaka's, even though Xhaka was really good first half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, my initial take on it was kind of like ruined by this Jesus thing, because I was seeing like basically what Havertz is able to do is become a second striker when we're in possession and pushed up the pitch, which can push Jesus to the right, and he starts to intermingle, with interchange with Odegaard and Saka, and that's like an insanely good triangle right there.
Yeah.
And that was happening against Barcelona in that like crazy preseason game. So that was like, I was stoked on that. And then the injury just kind of fucks that up. And it's, potentially going to be something similar with Trossard if he starts. But if it's Eddie, I don't know how much he's going to move out of that spot.
Yeah, I mean that's where I want to go and have to go, right? Is sort of like Jesus' replacements. Like he's already hurt. He gets hurt every year already. It's the same injury as last season, which is bad.
Yeah, and the timeline is super vague. It's like 3 to 6 weeks.
I just feel like whenever it's a recurring thing, also like that's a bad sign. Like there's something wrong.
It's not an injury, which is good. They're just like cleaning up his knee from his surgery last year. So it's like,
okay.
Basically he looked really good in that Barcelona game, but basically he had been feeling like discomfort. There's like stuff like shards of bone or whatever. There's like shit floating around his knee, and they have to like go and do arthroscopic surgery to like clean it up, which
that's bad.
It's not like super invasive, honestly, but it's not good. But it's not like he tore his ACL or like something.
Yeah, it's not rebuilding extremely anything. Bad, but it's definitely nowhere near good.
But it's not going to be like 2 months or half the season or something.
Knock on wood is all I'll say about that. Okay. But so no Jesus. I mean, who do you expect to start up top? Who do you want to start up top? C, last season was kind of interesting because we had that point in the season where Jesus was out and Nketiah was starting every game, getting a lot of chances. And people, I think, forget that. He was actually good. He just didn't finish. But, like, we know that that's not really a thing that we have to worry about. Like, if he keeps getting those chances, he'll get goals. But it really negatively affected Martinelli. because he wasn't, drifting to the left. He wasn't like really doing all that Jesus stuff and in build up and possession. Now, if Eddie comes back in again, that makes me worried about Martinelli again. Or do you think that they can maybe withstand some of that because of Kai? Or do you think it'll be Trossard because that was successful last year when they got him in the middle of the season, and then he took that over, and then Martinelli was back to his best? I mean, what are you thinking there?
I think it should be, and I want it to be Trossard.
Okay.
He can do that Jesus role like just so much better.
I agree.
Just and this preseason he's looked incredible. He's like so sharp, so fit. Scored a bunch, just looked amazing, looked better than Martinelli. So I was initially like worried about, is he going to like start left? Not worried, but is he going to start left wing over Martinelli, who's been like a little slower to get back and get fit? But now I think that concern's kind of over. Like Martinelli's probably nailed left wing, and now it's going to be most likely some kind of like timeshare between Trossard and Nketiah up front. Kind of depending on game state or who we're playing potentially. But I think to start, I feel like it just has to be just on form. Like it has to be Trossard.
Right. And I mean, the Community Shield might tell us tomorrow, right?
That's going to be huge,
it's going to be hard for me to not go Trossard. Like if he starts against City tomorrow and you have a 7 million midfielder playing striker for Arsenal for at least the first month, at least, if everything goes cleanly, it's a month.
Yeah, I mean, but you have to be okay
insane.
You have to be okay with like he might only play 65 minutes or something, and he might get subbed out for Nketiah, play on the wing, or get subbed out and play in midfield. He may play, get rotated for. I don't know, when does Champions League start or whatever, like cup games, extra fixture congestion stuff, like he'll get rotated pretty quick.
Like some of his starts last year were, 69 minutes, 71 minutes, 76 minutes, 64 minutes. There's a lot, obviously, of sub minutes also, but that was sort of the period when he was like starting up top, and he just doesn't go 90. But at the same time, he scores a lot of points and does a lot of things. And as Walsh and I like to say, hat-trick potential, right? I mean, he's literally done it before. He did it last season.
He just looks like he's not fucking around. Like these preseason games, he's not going slow. Like he's trying to score every goal, and he's just looks super sharp. Yeah.
So you were a hater.
I know. Well, it was so hard to tell. Brighton is just so hard to tell. Like who?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. People like Neil at Brighton. Like he's horrible.
Yeah.
I guess I just saw them next to
Everton.
Yeah, I saw them together just too much. Equated them too similarly. But he's fucking really good.
Okay, so Trossard might be on the menu, and then I think another like big common thing, which is totally a holdover from last season also, is like sort of when you're looking at your team trying to separate out the mids as FPL picks. I'm just curious, like, is it a clear ranking for you? Like this guy, then this guy, then this guy is the best, and that is just how it is? Or does it have to do with, like you said, like game state, the type of opponent, the form?
In terms of who gets picked, or in terms of FPL
in terms of
picks?
Like FPL picks, like Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli would be usually the three that are competing.
Well, you just want the nailed best guys, right?
Aren't they all nailed though? I mean, Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli.
I wouldn't say Trossard is in the nailed category at all.
I'm just talking about Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard.
Yeah.
Like of the three, like how do you separate them out as picks?
I mean, there's still, I would say, like 4% doubt of Martinelli starting.
Okay.
So I think he'd be at the bottom of my list.
Okay.
Whereas like he has potential to just skip to number one if like, he looks good and he's just like nailed on. He just seems like, I mean, he was like busy in the Monaco game. He looked good. He looked fast, but he didn't last the full game. He didn't really like create anything. He like beat his winger a couple times. So, I mean, he looks fine. we'll see, again, another big data point tomorrow in a game that the guy, like all the players are going to actually care about and try. Like you never know with preseason, like people are like worrying about our defense, and I'm just like, Saliba is like trying to dribble the whole team and like cross from the byline. Like these guys are, it's a fitness. Like most of these are just about fitness and like maybe trying some new strategy, some new tactics or whatever. Saka I still think for now is the guy. I mean, he got a full rest against Monaco, which was like kind of shocking to see. Like he just didn't come in, I don't remember the last time he didn't play at all in a game.
That is weird.
But he looked sick against Barcelona, like totally, like he never gets time off. So I don't think he really like lost fitness.
Right.
Like he was just like playing with England right away after the season, got like maybe a week, and then showed up for preseason.
We're killing our footballers, but that's fine.
But he's fit and firing, and he's just really feels like locked in main man.
What about Odegaard? I mean, people are suggesting that he might be a little deeper. He might be used more in like sort of build up, less as like, a shot taker in the final third, because Kai is going to be far forward and they need a little bit more like stability. Do you think there's anything in that?
I don't think he's going to limit any of his shot taking. Like, if anything, I think Arteta has tried to get him to basically be more aggressive on the ball, take more shots, show up and, make things happen.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to slow down from him. There's like tactical tweaks that could push him a little bit further back. So there's kind of something in that, just because we have this option now of Havertz being like the second striker if we're like defending in a 4-4-2 block.
Yeah.
He's going to be there as an outlet. Like he's such a good outlet. You just have this like whatever he is, 6'3", 6'2" guy. We've never had that kind of height and presence in the air. So I think there's certain situations where like he might be, if we're playing with one DM, if it's like just Partey or just Rice, like he might be kind of back with that guy. And
Havertz, like he's not going to be double pivot, but like
not
between
strictly,
him
but
and
like,
Kai, it seems like Kai will be more the 10 kind of.
They'll both do it. I'm sure they'll both do it.
Yeah.
Throughout a game, it'll switch to an extent, but Kai is just going to get used. I think that's something that like the team is excited to have, like that outlet when we're getting pressed and when we like win the ball in our own third or whatever.
Well, it's funny. I listened back to a really old double pivot episode from like 2019 or something, where they were talking about Kai. And it was before he went to Chelsea, and they were like, oh, he's probably just going to like go to Bayern and like be the Müller replacement or something, because he's like this superstar number 10. He's like this big number 10. And then he goes to Chelsea and just like plays number 9 for 3 seasons. And like everyone's like, oh, he sucks at finishing. It's like, well, he was playing at a position.
He's not a striker.
Time. Yeah, he's never been a striker.
He just looks like he should be.
He's just tall.
Yeah, he's just tall. But and then the other side of that is in pressing. TBD on if that changes. Like Odegaard's been kind of like leading the press traditionally, but if they really want Kai to be up there as kind of a second striker, occasionally that might happen. But yeah, it's more my only concern would be like is if when we're in transition, if Odegaard's a little deeper than normal. He's also like such a good passer in transition, so it kind of makes sense to have him there.
Yeah, I mean his passing is,
but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like he can hit Martinelli or whoever, with one long pass over the top or whatever.
I think it's not a bad thing, but it's more like where, like in my head, like a lot of his goals just came from like a cutback, and he's at the top of the box, the one taking the shot. And it's like, if he's not getting that goal, how many goals do you take off of his total? Something like that. I'm not talking about the goals where you guys are just 5 people just dominating possession against a bad team, right? And everyone's forward and he'll still be forward too. It's more like, like you said, transition, stuff like that. But Let's go. Let's just. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I wonder if his like just total shots is going to go down a little bit.
Yeah, just a little, right? And it's like I talked to Kaylee the other day, and
I started listening to it.
Yeah, like it's funny how like in the stats world, in terms of like projectability, like the difference between like a fraction of a shot per 90 is a big difference in like the evaluation of a player.
Like he was at 2.7 last year. If he's like 2.4, I mean that puts him down with like our midfielder or like deep midfielders or whatever.
Right.
Like
yeah,
or rotational wingers or whatever.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but you know, over the course of the season, that's 12 shots, and he's an above XG finisher, and you know, like it's easy to just do the math. It's like, oh, maybe that's 3 less goals, and like that matters a lot when you're a midfielder. So let's talk about the defense a little bit. So curious, like to me, I'm like worried about the stability. I'm like, there's gonna be one number 6. There's Odegaard's fucking pressing, getting forward. Kai's pressing, getting forward. The defense kind of fell off last year. That was like the big difference between the last, 15 games and the first bunch. Do you think that was sort of all down to Saliba's injury, or was there something tactically, or do you think it's just cleaned up now because Rice is so good, or like, are you worried about the defense at all?
Not really. I think, it's probably 90% Saliba's injury and like coming back slowly from it. And he's still kind of getting up to speed. Like I think he's good now. Like he looks good, but he's getting a lot of minutes in preseason, I think, for a reason. But I'm just, I'm not really, there's just such a huge drop off. Like it's almost like we didn't get to see it yet. Like how much better he is than like Holding being there or losing White on the right and not having a good backup right back that can do what Ben White does,
Yeah.
So there's just, especially with Timber, Tomiyasu's also back and looking fine. Like he's not looking like when he first came in, but like having that depth is huge. So like even if there was an injury and Ben White was playing, and instead of Saliba, you have Timber on the right, or you have Timber on the left, and you have Tomiyasu on the right. And Timber can play more deep too. He's like stronger, bigger, better in the air, better defensively than Zinchenko. So it's just we should just be better defensively, I think, once the team's settled. And if it should be, first game should be White, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber. And that just feels really strong to me.
Really secure.
And it also might be Partey and Rice. I don't think it will be against Forest, but
not home Forest, right?
But Partey's probably going to start
over Rice.
Yeah.
Wow, I just assumed that Rice was just
anything over Rice. Just sounds like food to me.
Yeah, a little Partey over Rice. Sprinkle a little furry Partey on
special
there.
Over Rice.
Yeah.
Damn. He's. Okay. Yeah, Rice looks like he's learning a new system still. Like,
yeah, I guess
he looks good, and there's no like concern in any of the quotes. It's just like, he's talked about how it's super different, and he's feels like he's being re-educated or whatever, and Arteta is like,
so different.
He's really good. We need to make sure we're not making him worse, and they're just like it's being sorted out. He also looked pretty good against Monaco as like a left 8-ish kind of player. Like he actually had some good little like give and goes and 2 good crosses from the left with his left foot. Like he looked kind of good in attack.
That was Walsh's shout at the end, and like the post-mortem, he was like, because he was thinking Rice is going to come in and play the Xhaka role and just be like an attacking 8 and box-to-box guy. And I don't think he will be, but maybe he could.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I don't think he's going to start against Forest. Probably be Kai and Odegaard and Partey. And Partey also he looks like at his peak, and like we know that might not last very long, but
Yeah.
He looks like he's at his best version of himself, which is like you don't get much better than that as a
He's
defensive
so
mid.
good. That's kind of what I was saying. I don't remember even when this was, when I was like, I like the players in Arsenal are signing, but I don't know how much better it makes the 11. Right? Because I was like, Partey's fucking amazing. Like, for 2,500 minutes, Partey's one of the best DMs in the league, you know? So Rice is maybe better and really good, but like...
But we've also only seen him do that on West Ham.
Yeah. Right.
No, I think that's kind of the argument happening within like Arsenal fan world now. But like, I don't think any of these signings really, aside from Havertz, I guess, are like for the first 11. They're like, the reason we broke down at the end of last year was having just this huge drop off anytime we lost. I mean, Trossard mitigated that with Jesus, but like, that was
having
the first step.
Fullbacks,
no backup fullbacks.
Partey running out of
drop
steam.
off, and center back. So it seems like that's kind of the focus now. You know, like with Champions League and wanting. I think there's a desire to stay in the cups longer and not just like put out kids and get knocked out in the 5th round or whatever. So that's all like, we can change out 1 or 2 guys and still play the way we want to play. So like, and also, Partey's 30 or whatever, and he might still go. He might get transferred in January.
This leads me very nicely to my next question, which I'm asking everyone in this thing. What's a good and successful Arsenal season this season?
Oh, I haven't thought about that at all, actually. I mean, dropping past 3rd, I think would feel pretty bad. Even though 2nd was like way better than anyone expected. But, that would mean like not only Liverpool doing better than us, but like Chelsea makes a big step, or United, and that would kind of feel shitty. Yeah. So I guess like 3rd and getting out of the group stage Champions League, and maybe like a deep one of the cups, like getting to the final.
Deep cup run and sort of consolidating the league position.
We haven't done, the last FA Cup trophy was, I guess that was 3 years ago.
It was early Arteta, right?
Yeah. He won it like his first year with Aubameyang and shit.
Right.
So some kind of non-season related, non-prem related success would be cool. And just staying in top 4 definitely, and 3rd would be nice, like automatic.
Yeah. And then the other question that I'm asking everyone is, who's going to lead the team in goals this year? Leading goal scorer.
I think it's going to be Saka. I think he's just gonna play every game again and just be good.
Yeah, and pens.
And he's still in pens. Yeah, well, I didn't get to that on his section. Like, I do think he's still nailed.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that was a discussion.
Oh, I don't think it is, but he
missed like a couple or something.
He missed 1 in preseason.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The only way he wouldn't is if Jorginho is somehow starting, or he's on the pitch when the penalty happens.
If Jorginho is starting, there's other issues. There's other issues, and we all have maybe one Arsenal player in our team.
Yeah. Although he's also been looking pretty good. He's totally fine. I'm like very happy with him,
but
as an option late in games. Last 20 minutes we can like finish a game now, which is also really good for the defense. Like,
because that was a problem last year.
If we're if against Forest, if we're 2-0 up and it's Kai and Odegaard and Partey, now we can bring Rice on. Later in the season, if one of them if Partey's gone, we can bring on Jorginho for Odegaard, something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And just have this like cool head,
double
just kill the game with passing and control.
I like that. Yeah.
So I'm feeling pretty good about the team in general. Obviously, I'm a homer, but
it's exciting times
injury
for everyone.
Sucks. It could be potentially very bad to be missing him.
Trossard's gonna get it done, dude. Don't worry.
Trossard has looked really good.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on, obviously, and we'll hear more from you through the season for sure.
Yeah, I hope we get to do some scouting vids and stuff like that.
It'll happen. Peace. Okay, we're back. Part 2 with Nate, post Community Shield, the Nate follow-up. Congratulations on the trophy, first of all. But
oh yeah, thanks.
Secondly, how does this change what we were talking about? Sort of with Kai played up top, Trossard didn't start.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I love immediately being wrong.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, one day later, everything out the window.
Yeah.
Well, not everything. Yeah, the weird thing about it is, I feel like I still don't know anything. Yeah, I didn't expect him to just be used that way all of a sudden after like the whole preseason being spent, training him for this left 8 role or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, the annoying thing is it basically just adds more confusion to the situation, in my opinion. I don't think it means like, oh, Kai's out of reverse out of position, not reverse, just out of position.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like cheap, like I guess he's probably close to nailed, but not necessarily a striker. And like,
it's a mess. Maybe
Trossard's still the guy in best form, but after seeing that game, I get like Kai does the best like pressing impression of Jesus, and like him and Odegaard pressing together was really good. But like Eddie's still the most. He looked good when he came on. He was like making some direct runs.
So stay away from all these guys.
He's probably a better finisher than Kai. So like, yeah, against Forest, are they going to do? Is like Rice and Partey both going to play? Because they were having to like do so much work against City, like rotating in and out of the back line. Rice like coming forward and helping on like second balls and winning the ball higher up the pitch and pressing and like.
I was going to ask you about that specifically. Like, it sort of seemed like a City plan to me. Like, we're going to go play out of possession for, at least most of for 70 minutes or whatever, play without the ball. When we win it back, we're going to long ball the Kai, and he was incredible at like taking it down and holding it up and stuff. And then, he got on the end of the 2 big chances too. But that is not how Arsenal plays in like 9 out of 10 games.
No. And yeah, you don't want to, like in theory, it's preseason and I don't want it to, like, I wouldn't guess that he would treat it this way, but like, I guess it's City and it's different.
It's just different.
It's like, it's like bragging rights, personal for Arteta. It's like,
well, also someone was tweeting, one of the like journalists or whatever was tweeting that like in other countries, they really care about this and consider it like a major trophy. Like Pep has always talked about it as like, yeah, we won a big trophy or like, huge game.
Really?
And stuff. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's fucking weird. But, so. And
I think it's like a morale booster. I think that's kind of the main. And just like for Arsenal, it's like a big like mental. It was an opportunity to like get over this block of like we just get destroyed by City no matter what, no matter how good we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, to see them play well was like a huge boost for the team. But like, yeah, in terms of FPL
fantasy,
options, it's just clouds it up so much for me. Like, I kind of agree with what Walsh was saying. Like, Saka is kind of it's kind of the only super nailed, trustable option.
Yeah.
There's also people. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I even want to like give airtime to this, but people like speculating about the pens too, because like Odegaard took the first one and it was really good. And
from the shootout, come on.
But I don't know. But Saka's scored it. I mean, it wasn't amazing, but he scored it. So.
What a mess. It's a fantasy disaster.
To me, to see like the first sub, what was it? When Eddie came on.
I think
for
the first
Rice?
sub was Tierney for Timber. Tross was the first sub. Tross for Martinelli, and then
Tross
Tierney for Timber.
Yeah. Well,
when was Eddie for Rice.
Yeah. So when that happened, Yeah, so the things I was looking for was like, is Trossard going to sub on and play up top?
Right, and he didn't.
For Kai, and he didn't. So he came on for Martinelli, which is like, okay, now I don't know if he's still being considered like a left winger, maybe is Martinelli nailed? And then Kai, or when Eddie comes on, Kai stays on and moves back to left 8. And I'm like, so what the fuck is his? Yeah. So now I'm not convinced that he's definitely a striker. Yeah. And like, I don't know, maybe it's probably not helpful, but yeah, I don't know. Game week 1, I don't think you want to speculate on this kind of shit. Like, just
you want Saka.
I think we'll find out in the first few fixtures, like who is, what do we look like against a team like Forest versus a team like that we have to really press. Like,
yeah, I mean the
City,
problem,
Liverpool,
the issue from fantasy perspective, and Walsh always brings this up, is that like, yes, we will learn those things after they play home Forest, at Palace, and home Fulham. But simultaneously, we want them for those fucking games because they might win 4-0 in any of them. So it's like, yeah, I don't know.
They might, but
I still think Martinelli's like overlooked as a pick, even if he gets subbed off on 75 minutes every game for Trossard or whatever. Like, he's still the main goal scorer to me, but I think ultimately, yeah, I mean, Saka is the one. It's really hard to make. He did have
that one big chance.
Yeah.
That got blocked,
rebound.
Which I was kind of like, yeah, I kind of saw that as like, that was sort of a not confident finish. He kind of just hit it as hard as he could, even though there's clearly a guy right there. Like, I kind of wish he'd like looked up and just picked his spot, instead of just fucking hitting it as hard as he can
right
into somebody's chest.
Stones' chest, yeah.
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 But
right. I don't know.
That's kind of it. Yeah, I do think, but I think to your point, like having someone like Saka or Martinelli I would lean Saka still just for nailedness.
Yeah.
You're still getting chances, and Saka wasn't amazing, but he's, it's still preseason. He had one pretty good chance, and not the easiest opponent.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a reason Saka's 56% owned. Like, I think that the crowd,
I didn't know it was that high.
Yeah, the crowd
people
knows that what we're saying is
yeah. So he's template now.
He's the guy. Oh yeah, for sure, template. And I can't really make an argument against him. He's that kind of guy in FPL, right? It's like the price, the fixtures, the team, the role, the pens. It's like,
I mean, maybe if you're choosing between like him and Bruno, there's an argument. If you're between two guys like that, like he's not coming off a flyer preseason scoring a bunch of goals, like he was last year, for example. But I was just going to say the only other takeaway from this game is like the defense looked really good.
Yeah, Timber I thought was really good.
Timber was great in a pretty different role from what Zinchenko does, but still like equally helpful and did some cool stuff in attack too. But generally, like the back line and Ramsdale were just better than the last few preseason games. So that I'm just feeling
better
more confident
than the
about
end
in general.
Of last season.
Yeah.
And White created that one big chance too.
Oh yeah, he was having fun out there.
He's. I mean, I think everyone, including us, like kind of threw him out the window, just being like, he's 5'5". Why would I get
price,
him instead of a 5'0" Gabriel, 5'0" Saliba, whatever? But like, he's up there. He's in the final third. Like, he's gonna get some assists. I don't know. Maybe there's a case.
I don't know if he's gonna earn that.
Don't know.
Specifically because like when we were pushing for goals more, one thing I was noticing was like Saliba and Gabriel seemed specifically told to like find these line breaking passes instead of just kicking it out wide or whatever.
Yeah.
They both had a few like sort of reverse or like unexpected kind of line breaking through the middle, trying to find whoever's, is slightly more direct, but like, against those first four fixtures, like there's kind of like not equally, but there's close enough of a chance of like a Saliba or Gabriel assist or goal as there is a Ben White assist. Yeah. I mean, at least close enough that like the 0.5 is probably not worth it.
I just thought like, listen, I don't have Ben White in my like tinker or anything. I'm just talking, but like I thought that against those bad teams, like we might just see Ben White in the final third, like for half the game. Like, you know, just 75% possession, just complete dominance. And like, he's just putting in crosses or, you know, laying it off to Saka, which might be an assist also.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. All right. So what Arsenal players are going to be in your team, you think? And then let's wrap it up.
Oh God, I haven't messed. There's been so much shit going on. I haven't messed with my team really because I've just been overwhelmed.
Yeah,
but yeah, probably one of the center backs.
Which one?
And
because most people are going Gabriel because certifiable donger. You know, like gets his head on corners, but I don't know.
Yeah, but Saliba's looking really good and. Gabriel is also like a yellow card shout pretty much every game.
That's a fact.
So kind of leaning towards Saliba a little bit, but they're very even. Then probably Saka as well. Although Odegaard's looking really good too. But and if I don't know. That is maybe like a bit of a conversation, the Odegaard over Saka, if you want to not be template.
What? No.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. Walsh
is going to listen to this and put him straight.
Oh, yeah. 100%. He's like, dude, Nate said. All right, dude. Well, thank you for coming on again. And yeah. See you.
My pleasure.
See you soon. See you tomorrow.
Good luck.
Today I'm joined by Robin from the TogetherBHA podcast. What's up, Robin? How you doing?
Yeah, all good, man. Nice to be here.
Yeah. I mean, season is rapidly approaching. You feel okay?
Yeah, I'm getting really excited now. Like yesterday was our traditional kind of Amex friendly. So then you feel like, okay, we're nearly there. The English Football League has started, so that's a bit of like a palate cleanser to get those games going. So yeah, now we're in the business end, starting to feel real.
Once the Community Shield is done, I'm like, oh man, time to pick your team, time to get going.
I just did my team last night. Literally, whilst I was watching the Community Shield, I was pretty much finalising it. So yeah, you're right. It's always the marker.
Yeah, it's always the marker for me. Let's talk about some of the new Brighton signings. And I wanted to start with João Pedro. He took a penalty, which is a big deal for us.
It's a big deal.
FPL nerds.
He's the one I was going to highlight because he looks really exciting. He played a lot of football in the States on the tour. Really like a lot of direct running. Really likes to take his man on. Comfortable with his back to goal as well. And as you say, takes a really cool penalty. So I think he's going to play a lot of football. He is only, he's still early 20s, but he's played for Watford. Seems like he's been there for a few years. And speaking to Watford fans, he was their captain a lot last season when he was only 20, 21.
Wow.
And he's played in the Premier League briefly when Watford were up a few seasons ago. So I think he's pretty ready made for the Premier League. So yeah, he's gone in my team. I'm normally I normally shy away from putting Brighton players in because I think, am I being too, am I looking at it through blue and white glasses? So I normally tend to try and avoid one, but pragmatically, I think he's one that's going to play a lot of football. Certainly, if he's taking penalties, I think he's going to be good for a lot of points, and he's pretty cheap. I think he's $5.5 million.
He's super cheap, but I think part of that is also, Brighton just have so many attackers. Like I feel like there's like, especially if Kudus gets over the line, there's like 8 guys or something that could start any week.
4 positions,
right?
I think
that's what I'm worried about.
So I think he can play. I think yesterday we saw him playing in the kind of number 10 role, in behind Welbeck as a starter, which I think is probably where he'll feature most. But as you say, he can play off the left, he can play off the right, he can play slightly deeper. So I think he'll be one that will play a lot of football. So yeah, he's good from a fantasy league point of view and a general Brighton point of view. I think he's going to be a good signing. Yeah.
So do you think that it'll be sort of like a first choice 11 that De Zerbi's usually running out most weeks, or do you think it's going to kind of be a rotation and maybe
there's going to have to be some rotation, I think.
Yeah, especially with Europe.
Yeah, first half of the season, we were looking at the the schedule yesterday, and first half of the season is brutal. Where you've got your 6 Europa League group games there. You've obviously got the Carabao Cup starts,
right?
And there's some really like brutal runs in the league as well. So I think as much as De Zerbi does like to have his kind of favoured 11, I think partly because of as a workload point of view, he's going to have to rotate. And as you just alluded to, he's got so much talent to keep happy as well that he's going to have to rotate. But I think João Pedro's one. I think he will end up playing a lot of football.
Okay.
So yeah, he's an exciting one.
Good to know. What about the keeper? Do you think he's first choice? Do you think Steele keeps it? Do you expect game week 1? Who do you think will be in there? Because the defense is good. Again, they're relatively cheap. What do you think?
I think Verbruggen's going to be. Before yesterday, I thought Steele would start the season as number 1, and I thought by the end of the season, Verbruggen would be comfortably the number 1 keeper. Steele in our friendly yesterday, I don't know if you saw, he had a bit of a, howler in our friendly yesterday, which he is prone to. So I still think Steele will start the season as number 1, but I don't think it will be long before Verbruggen takes over. He's one who, he's had a reputation the last couple of years across Europe as being, one of the best young keepers, especially with the ball at his feet, and his distribution. Which is key to how De Zerbi wants to play, turning defence into attack at the blink of an eye, with a pass, straight through, which, Robert Sanchez managed to do on the odd occasion last season as well. So I think it's a key one. And obviously, Jason Steele did it himself in the Brentford game in the States.
Yep.
There was an assist for Adingra, which was straight through the middle. So I think we'll be comfortable with either of those. But I mean, I don't think you bring in one of Europe's, most exciting goalkeepers for, 15 plus million pounds with the intention that he's not going to be knocking very loudly on the door to be number 1.
Yeah, makes sense. And then what do you think about the defense from like a clean sheet perspective? Dunk's barely been featuring. Obviously Colwell's not there anymore. McAllister's not there anymore.
Yeah,
Caicedo might not be there anymore. How do you feel about the clean
defense?
Is
where we need some defense is where we need some reinforcements, without a doubt. I mean, I think the amount of attacking players that we've got at the moment,
it's crazy.
It may be that we have to win a lot of games 4-3 or 5-4 because defense is definitely an area where even before the end of last season we needed to strengthen. Obviously, as you say, Colwell's gone. We've brought in Igor Julio from Fiorentina, who we hadn't seen before yesterday. He made his first appearance yesterday, and as you'd expect, he didn't look that match ready. He looked a little bit slow out of the blocks, but it's his first 30 minutes for a new club under a different, a manager who likes to play in a very, very specific way. Dunk, I think, as you said, he was injured at the end of last season. He didn't play at all on the tour. I think it's because he doesn't have anything to prove. De Zerbi knows that he can just slot. If he's fit, he can slot him in there, and he doesn't need to worry. But yeah, we definitely need some defensive signings. We don't really have a genuine right back. I mean, Veltman obviously plays there quite a lot. Pascal Gross started there yesterday. Lamptey just seems to have fallen off the face of the earth from injuries. So yeah, we definitely need a right back. I mean, I love Pascal Gross. He is, I think, looking at last season's stats, he was like a top 10 midfielder in terms of overall points gained in the league. So he's so versatile, but I do not want him playing at right back on a semi-regular basis. So right back, we definitely need. Dunk, if he stays fit, generally does. No qualms about that. Webster is one that he splits the fan base a little bit. He's one of the few that arguably looked better in Graham Potter's style than De Zerbi's style. He can get caught out a little bit, but I mean, he's still a very good centre back. And we rely on Estepinian basically just never being injured or tired. And he's a metronome. Certainly last season,
he's a fitness monster. Yeah.
So that is obviously a gamble. Can he continue? Can you have that sort of record 2 seasons in a row where you basically miss, not a minute of football almost? So I think we could do with a fullback ideally someone that could cover both sides would be an ideal signing. But yeah, defense is, if there is a worry, it's in defense.
Yeah, it does sound like you're worried because Estupiñán is the most owned defender in the game right now. And it sounds like you're worried about the clean sheets coming in. So that's kind of interesting.
Definitely.
Maybe he's not as good a pick as it seems. I don't know.
I mean, I think he is. I would definitely keep picking him, but it's more, it's more the risk of can he keep that fitness level up?
Yeah.
Because he played basically all of last season. He played in the World Cup. Comes back from the World Cup, keeps playing relentlessly. And maybe he's just one of those players like James Milner, who we might want to touch on, who's just, fitness levels is just, freakish.
Yeah.
But yeah, clean sheet wise, I think we do require some additional reinforcements, I think. And, that may come into how quickly, to go back to Verbruggen, that may play into how quickly he comes into the team.
Yeah.
Like, does De Zerbi think, actually, I don't want to throw everything up in the air by having a new goalkeeper in amongst a back four that, is a little bit fluid at the best of times. So, no, that's where I think there's going to be, I think that's probably where, hopefully, by the end of the window, we'll have at least one fullback.
Yeah, makes sense. What about striker? So I know Welbeck's been starting, I think most of the matches with the first 11 kind of thing, but I'm really excited about Evan Ferguson. I think a lot of people are. I'm sure you are. And to me, he's just a better player. He's higher potential for, goals. And I really want someone like that in fantasy, but with the rotation, it seems like he's not a pick. Do you think it's just a flat out rotation, or is it the type of thing where he prefers one over the other for a specific type of match or type of opponent, or how do you think it works there?
I think he does prefer. He'd love to pick Ferguson every week if he had, but the point that he kept making last season was, hey, this guy is only just 18, which it's so easy to forget how young he is because physically he doesn't look 18.
Yeah,
the way that he. The way that he conducts himself on the pitch, he doesn't look like he's 18. He's able to handle himself against, these big centre-backs who are, a lot more experienced than him. And, he doesn't finish like an 18-year-old. He finishes like someone who's been, playing at the Premier League for 10 years. So I think De Zerbi last year made the point that, you cannot, it's partly about expectation.
Yeah.
But this guy is 18. You can't put the hopes of a team every week on the shoulders of a guy who's 18. So I think he'll very carefully manage him, especially with Europe in the equation as well. So I think he'll play more often than not, but I think you'll still see the same rotation. And sometimes it was frustrating last year because there'd be games where you'd be like, this game is calling for Evan Ferguson, please. And, but you had to kind of balance it with De Zerbi saying, look, he's played a lot of football and he hasn't, it's his first year in senior football last year. So, you have to be mindful of it. And, Danny Welbeck is, he's a player who has...
He's still solid.
He's been around the block. He's played, 50 plus times for England. He's had his injury problems, but, he's a guy who also deserves, he deserves minutes on the pitch as well. So, from a fantasy league point of view, personally speaking, I wouldn't put a Brighton striker in there, not because I don't have the ability, but just because you're not necessarily going to have one who is guaranteed to play every week.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's kind of no attacker that's guaranteed to play every week, except maybe Matoma?
Maybe Matoma, and I think João Pedro might be the one, if he hits the ground running, those two might.
Yeah, everyone's still on Matoma. I mean, he's super highly owned, and so maybe...
He might be the only one. But I wouldn't... Yeah. I think it's just, the rotation is what counts against. I mean, I've gone up front. I've gone Ollie Watkins from Villa. I'm sure you'll probably cover him at some point. But that's as someone who's more likely to play, every week.
Everyone seems to be getting him in right now. Ollie Watkins is popular in the game. All right, this is something I've been asking everyone on this episode is just what's a good and successful Brighton season this season?
We had on another podcast yesterday, we had this exact question. And I said 8th or 9th, something like that. But the condition on that is it comes with a decent run in Europe and it comes with a decent run in one or both of the cups. If you offered me that now, if you offered me 9th in the league and you offered me a good run in Europe and a good run in either or both of the cups, I'd be quite happy with that. It's simply because you can't. I look at the league table and you go, there's, this traditional top 6 idea.
Yeah.
For the moment, it's just been blown apart.
Yeah.
So you've got Villa who are going to be strong again. Newcastle you expect to be strong. Chelsea and Liverpool, you think one or both of them can't be as dreadful as last year.
Yeah.
So they're probably both going to be better. You've got Spurs. Who knows what Spurs are going to do? You've then obviously still got United, Man City, Arsenal. It's a real scrap to get into that top 10. And I think legitimately we're still in the conversation, but I think we'll be towards the back of that queue. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't hugely surprise me if we were to finish 6th or 7th again. I just don't think it's the likeliest scenario.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. Like sort of consolidating that you're in that 6 to 8 range, and then having a cup run. I mean that's kind of what I thought, but I didn't know if the fan base is thinking, no, we pushed for top 4. That's the only way.
I think it's difficult because on paper you go, it would be a drop, right, in the league.
Right.
So you go, is that a worth? But you think we haven't played in Europe before,
right?
And that's going to be a big. That's immediately 6 extra games. I say packed into that first half of the season that's already busy. So that's, even if you didn't have the Chelsea and Liverpool, scenario of them both probably going to be better than last year, having those 6 extra games would already be something that was going to make a bit of a difference. So I think if we were to finish 9th, have a good run in Europe and either or both of the cups, there's no way logically you can make the argument to say, hey, that's a worse season than last year.
I agree. I totally agree. And then the other question that I'm asking everyone is, who leads the team in goals this season?
I mean, given what we've just said on the rotation and the depth of attacking talent, it is hard.
It's almost like no player gets over 9, but a lot of players get 8 and 9.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. I'm probably going to say that Ferguson and João Pedro. Either one or both of those. But I think you're dead right. I think they'll both probably be around the 9, 10, 11, 12 mark in terms of Premier League goals. Right. But I think that's De Zerbi's, that to actually have goals shared around the team, it justifies the rotation, and it means, hey, if suddenly Evan Ferguson's out for a while, you're not thinking, where are the goals going to come from?
Yep. And Ciso, another one that might step in there.
Matoma hit that goal, that streak.
Yep.
Towards the beginning of the calendar year, where he seemed to be scored
every game,
in every game basically. Yeah. So, there's all sorts. I mean, Solly March, he had a pretty hot streak at various points of last season. So there's all sorts. But I think you're absolutely right that I expect that there'll probably be 5, 6, 7 players who will be getting the goals.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's a wild team. It's a fun team, though. It's a fun team.
It is.
And it's an exciting season incoming. Thanks, Robin. Thanks so much for coming on.
No worries.
And I'll link to the podcast in the show notes and whatnot. And cheers, man. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Today I'm joined by Brandon from the London is Blue podcast. What's up, Brandon?
Not much. Just got done with the summer tour with Chelsea. We popped around to, the guys did North Carolina, then I did Philly, DC, and Atlanta. So we got to see the team in action, see what's cooking under Poch. It was great.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I only went to one match, not even the team I support, but it was still a blast. I mean, I hope they do the summer series like every year. It's so fun. So let's talk about some of the new signings. And so Nkuku is injured maybe for a long time. Is what the rumors are like he's hurt and he's going to miss a week, and then maybe it's a month, and now maybe it's a couple months. So I don't know what's going there. Maybe we don't have to talk about him, but I'm curious about the injury. Who will play in the hole, do you think? Probably number 10. behind, I assume, what'll be Nico Jackson? And who do you expect to be on the wings?
Yeah, good question. So it looks like Nkuku's going to be out for a couple months. I think he did his meniscus or his MCL.
Ouch.
Either way, he's going to be down for a couple months. Unfortunately, he was class. Watching him in person, he was really good. So now we just got to move on. Who's going to play in the hole behind him? Well, I'll tell you what, it's probably a good thing for Conor Gallagher. He's definitely a very attacking player that we have that could fill that role. Ian Motson played it for a hot second in preseason, but that's really not his strong suit, obviously. But if you go up and down the lineup, we actually just have, Carney Chukwuemeka is going to be the guy, I would say, who's actually going to luck into it, because he's very much a number 10 and doesn't like to do the defensive work out of it. So I think he's going to be the benefactor.
That's very FPL interesting. He's 4'5", so that's huge. What about Nico Jackson? I mean, I know I saw some of the highlights, some sick goals, assists, and all that stuff. What do you think of him so far? What do you project he'll be up to this season? Especially, like, I'm wondering if you think that the Nkuku injury is a big downgrade to his possible output.
Well, I think yes, just in the sense that Nkuku's so good. He's got good size, loves to challenge aerially. Can create space and has a good pass on him. So I think anytime you lose a good player, it's going to affect the other ones around him. Nico Jackson, he is confident. He is hungry. He is confident. He really believes in himself. The quotes about, hey, I like Drogba, but I'm going to be better than him. You're just like, okay, well, bar set as high as it could possibly go. He's good. I think that he can play down the middle. He can play a little bit off center. He will be the focal point for Chelsea. Armando Broja is coming off an injury at ACL, then got injured again, didn't even go to the US. So it is the Nico Jackson show. If he doesn't play, we're probably going to be forcing a false nine up there, and that won't be ideal. So it's really his spot to own from the beginning. And
I like that a lot from a fantasy perspective, for sure. Just a couple other signings to talk about. Disasi and Bob Sanchez came in. So I'm wondering, first of all, is Kepa under threat? Who do you think is the first choice keeper? And then what's the back line? I mean, I assume James and Chilwell are wide. I assume Thiago Silva's still in there. Is it Colwell? I know Badiashile's hurt. There's just so many guys.
Yeah, a little bit. We did sell a few defenders as well. Fofana out. Yeah, that sucks. I was excited to watch him this season. But anyways, starting in the back, Robert Sanchez coming in from Brighton, essentially to get the Caicedo deal done, which is what it is. I think he will. It's Kepa's to lose at this point, but from what we hear and what we've seen, the goalkeeping coach from Brighton, Ben Roberts, who came to Chelsea, really wanted him. But Ben Roberts isn't there day to day. It's Tony Jimenez who's the goalkeeper coach. So it's a little bit goofy. I think Kepa's going to start the season, but if he has a wobble or a couple soft goals going, which we know has tended to happen him, Sanchez is going to get a run. He's a known starter in the Premier League. There's nothing to lose. And I was talking about this on our podcast just the other night. If Kepa starts to wobble, who do you invest in? A guy whose contract ends in 2025 or a guy you just put on a 7-year deal? It's just the way the business works. I think they're going to give Sanchez the benefit in that situation and see what they can get out of him. So we played a little game over under on Kepa, and I put the line at 20 matches. I think there's probably 25 matches where I'd set the line, but that's not good enough for a de facto number one in the Premier League. They should be playing 35 to 38 matches.
For sure. Yeah.
I think you're going to see some movement in their goalkeeper position.
Yeah. And you never know. Maybe the competition will bring the best out of both of them or something, but we'll see.
We all hope.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I would be remiss if I did not ask you about Raheem Sterling. We call him Raz. He's been an FPL mainstay. He's been an FPL mainstay for, 9 years, 10 years. But he had a first, really down year last season. I mean, pretty much everyone on Chelsea did. Do you think he's first choice? Where do you think he plays? What do you expect from him? Or do you think it's possible that he just like reached the cliff and, there's no coming back?
Raz is tough. Big money, right? Like 300 some thousand pounds a week. Leader inside the England camp, everything we heard. It just hasn't quite clicked at Chelsea. In preseason, I would say we didn't get to see Noni Madueke. So Raheem got minutes, but our best attack that we saw, at least in preseason, was Mudryk out wide with Ian Maatsen on the other side.
Wow.
They were so dynamic. They were so fast. And when Raheem came in, he's lacking confidence. He got a couple really good through balls and just didn't pull the trigger or smashed at the goalkeeper. He slows down the play. And I tell you what, we have a young, energetic team, whether it was Chester Cassidy in the middle, Conor Gallagher, they want to drive. And then Mudryk and Maatsen, Nico Jackson's happy to run. He just slowed it down a little bit. And I don't know if that's the Man City style where they're able to slow it down and like do these little triangular passes to make something happen. Chelsea's not like that. So I would say, unfortunately, not saying he's in the same camp, but him and Cucurella were the two players we kind of circled and said, I don't know right now. Like if you had to shift, they're the ones that I think the fans were looking at saying, we could definitely do something better here.
Oh, that's so tragic, man. He's
very much so.
Yeah, it's just gonna fizzle out maybe, but we'll see. And then recent Chilwell are always FPL relevant. They're so attacking, so good when they're in the final third. The talk in the FPL community has been that like Reece is going to play a little bit deeper and be sort of the more defensive of the two. Chilwell's like totally free to get in the box, underlap, overlap, like be in the final third all the time. He's kind of like a trendy FPL pick right now. What do you think between the two?
Well, that is going to be when Chelsea have been at their best in the last few seasons. It is coming from the wingbacks. There's just no way around it. Chilwell looks fit. He's put on some muscle. He ran in preseason. He came into season fit, and you could tell the guys that came in ready to rock. So I expect big things from Chilwell, and Reece James is vying for the captaincy. So you have to expect big things. Here, there's no surprise here. The only thing that matters for these guys is their health.
Everyone knows that.
They are unbelievable when they're at their best. We've seen it. The problem is we don't get it very often. So, yeah, look, they're starting from a good spot. Reece James looked, I'd say he was lacking a little bit of fitness. Chilwell looks bombed and ready to go. What I would say, which is good, is that Malo Gusto can cook at that right back spot. He looked so good. And I would even say to the point where, like, if you had to shift James more centrally at some point, almost like a right center back, like Aspi moved to, or potentially even a 6, like you did at Wigan, hey, we're good. We are covered at the right side of defense because Malo is here. So I do think, though, that helps, knowing that we don't have to risk Reece. And that actually might be one of the best signings for that reason that Chelsea made all summer.
Right. Yeah, I think when FPL managers saw that Gusto was 4.0, it's kind of like, all right, when that Reece injury pops up out of nowhere, we got our guy.
Yeah, have Malo sitting on the bench for sure, and then anytime you need him, you're guaranteed attacking returns from both those guys.
Yeah. All right, yeah, definitely some interesting names. I mean, the positive spin when Chelsea or any of the big teams has like a really down year is that all of their assets are going to come in underpriced, and then it's just like, who's going to pop? So we'll see. A question that I'm asking everyone on this episode is, what is a good and successful Chelsea season this season?
Yeah, we got asked this in the live show. We really had to kind of like stick our necks out there a little bit, and there's 3 of us that do the show, and we all had different things. I think you obviously have to go in with Poch and say top 4. Top 4 is the aim. Like, from a success standpoint, that's it. Young-ish team. Even with Thiago Silva on the pitch, I think our average squad at times was 21.
Oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah. So I think you have to take that into consideration. And you go down the squad, how many of these new players really have a lot of Premier League experience? Malo Gusto obviously played in Ligue 1, which is good. Disasi played in Ligue 1 with Monaco. ton of minutes, which is great to see. Madueke is coming off a pretty good U21 World Cup. Mudryk seems to be ready to go. Maatsen will be, I think, our big surprise. And at the end of the day, you got to score goals, and we just don't know how that's going to work. Thankfully, we scored, I think, in every single in summer game this summer, which Newcastle's 1-1 draw. So, there's signs there that are good, but I think a lot of cautious Chelsea fans are saying, hey, at the end of the day, if you get into Europa League and you can take this team to Europe and make it a 2-year jump back, great. But I think as Chelsea fans, the compromise would be a domestic cup then, because we don't want to go without Champions League or domestic cup to kind of set that expectation and, get back to winning ways. Our slogan we always put on the show is chaos and trophies, right? We sell shirts with that. So
that's beautiful.
We've had plenty of chaos. It's time for a trophy or two. So
plenty of chaos. Yeah, I mean, usually that's how it goes. I feel like at Chelsea, it's like one bad year, win the Champions League. It's like, okay.
It was wild.
And then the other question that I'm asking everyone, who's leading the team in goals this season?
So funny. Every time we stopped somewhere, it was someone different. A lot of people had Nkunku, right? But him going down for 2 months is tough. We don't know who's going to take penalties. Hopefully it's Jackson, just so he can bag as many goals, kind of Harry Kane style as he can. Because we don't have Jorginho anymore to be our leading goal scorer with 0 open play goals. But I do think it's going to be Nico Jackson. He's going to be the focal point of this team, which literally everything is going to go through him. This sneaky kind of punt would be an Ian Maatsen or Ben Chilwell, I would say.
Yeah, you keep bringing up Maatsen. Maybe we should visit him really quickly before we get out of here. I mean, what's the deal? I don't know much about him. I know he was in the Championship last season. Highly rated, Burnley obviously tore it up, shredded everyone, but I don't know much about him individually. Tell me about him.
Yeah, so he's Dutch, came through the Chelsea Academy, played a few different positions there, which is pretty normal for the Cobham development system. So he had a great season for Burnley, as you mentioned, as a left back and a back four with Vincent Kompany. This season, apparently Poch doesn't listen to our podcast, because every time I got a chance, I was like, this preseason, Cucurella's played left back. Chilwell's played left back. Even Lewis Hall had been playing left back. Ian Maatsen played 0 minutes at left back. And I was like, you got to run him out, see what he's got. Because we got to figure out what we do at our left back. Ian Maatsen went and bagged like 3 goals and 3 assists. As a left, he played left wing, played right wing, and he played cam at points. He impressed. He did everything you could have asked him for. He is so quick. He is so dynamic. He is so confident right now. His one-on-one ability. And I think that he, like I said, if you had to ask a lot of Chelsea fans that watch preseason, it would be Mudryk on the left and Maatsen on the right, both of them cutting in. And they create a lot of problems. And so Maatsen, he's kind of the sleeper player. Like he hasn't played any defensive minutes. And so he's essentially an attacker in Poch's team. And I think he knows in the back of his mind, Chilwell or Cucurella's issues back there, he can just slot him back in case of emergency. Because it sounds like Lewis Hall is going to go to Palace on loan.
And the thing, I guess, with Poch is like, well, at least the way he was at Spurs is like, if you're one of his guys, you're one of his guys. He's not gonna rotate. He's gonna run you out. Yeah. So, do you think it's Mudryk, Chukwuemeka, Maatsen, game week 1 home Liverpool, or is that a step too far? You think he'll go with like maybe Sterling or someone more established? I don't know, because that's so young and exciting and crazy. Yeah.
Look, Poch is if there's one thing he's a bit crazy, especially the Gaucon test and everything he does. I would say it's not crazy if you look at the performances from preseason. If you're just to take it on the merit, the only change I'd make is if you get Caicedo, I could see Conor Gallagher playing that cam role to start, just because he's a little safer and he tackles back. But I don't think many Chelsea fans would be shocked if Mudryk and Maatsen are up starting. And I could see it if he wants to go safe and play Sterling, but I think you'll see him get subbed off unless he scores 1, assists 1 right away, which is Liverpool the opening season. I don't know if you guys talk strength of schedule, but Chelsea a little bit of a tough run at the beginning, but then thankfully we hit Luton, Nottingham Forest, and Bournemouth, so it feels good.
That's why we're interested in FPL, right? It's like Liverpool are open, there's goals there. This isn't Liverpool of 2-3 years ago, right? And then it's like, okay, at West Ham's not the best, but it's not terrible. And then it's like, oh my God, six in a row where it's just like they could do anything. So
yeah. We'll see how it shakes out. West Ham without Rice, and they were at the bottom of the table anyways, but they had Conference League, which they'll say. But, I think Chelsea, if you can get past Liverpool, the next one you're really worried about is Aston Villa, which isn't until towards the end of September. So I think there's probably some decent assets from an FPL standpoint for Chelsea. We're bullish, but that's because last season was so bad. I don't think we could possibly fathom anything other than immediate improvement this season.
Yeah, I don't see another 12th place, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, Brandon, thanks so much for coming on, and have a good one, man.
My pleasure.
Today I'm joined by Wendy, the host of the Extra Inch Spurs podcast. What's up, Wendy? How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, man. So usually I start with new signings and fun stuff and all that cool stuff, but we have to address the elephant in the room. Harry Kane. Is he going? Is he staying? What's happening?
God, I feel like I've been addressing the elephant in the room for quite a few weeks with this now. I mean, I was adamant at the start of the window that he was going to stay, and I think that was like some kind of copium going on for me.
Yeah.
But at this point, I mean, it's weird as well, because at that point, all the rest of the fan base was like, no, he's leaving, he's done, he's gone. Yeah. And now it's switched. Everyone else thinks he's staying. I think he's going. I think he's done. I think it's a matter of time before Bayern meet Daniel Levy's asking price, and I think he'll leave. But honestly, it does seem like it's 50-50 at this point.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the situation at this point. He's in the last year of his contract. It's now or never if you want to get a transfer fee. Personally, I don't really care if you get a transfer fee. I'd rather see my favorite ever Spurs player stay for one more year. But I get it. Like, some people would prefer to have the money and spend that on replacements. Personally, I don't think you can replace Harry Kane. I think he's like the best player we've had in my life. And, we're going to have to figure it out one way or another without him. The optimistic take is that we already replaced him by signing Richarlison last year.
Right.
But he's not Harry Kane, so who knows?
Yeah, do you think it is Richarlison's spot? If Kane goes, he'll be the 9?
I do think that. I think so we could bring in a 9. I think there's every possibility we could bring in a 9, but I think it would be a younger player, more likely. Gift Orban is the one we've been linked with. He's got a really good scoring record in the 2 leagues he's played in, but he hasn't played in anything like the Premier League. So I think it would be a steep learning curve. And honestly, Richarlison's looked really good in pre-season as the 9. Obviously, he performs really well for Brazil in that position as well. He has experience, he has pedigree. He does the things that Postecoglou wants his 9 to do, like constantly pushing the defence back by making those runs in behind. He's pretty good in the air. We make a lot of crosses. So I think he's quite well suited. Obviously, he's not Harry Kane, but he's a good player in his own right.
But from, FPL perspective, he's cheap. He's a midfielder.
Hell yeah.
He could just be incredible.
Honestly, if Kane goes, I think it will be a matter of weeks before literally everyone has Richarlison in the team. It will be like a 90% ownership.
Yeah, it'll be that kind of season.
7 million mid.
Yeah, 7 million mid playing forward, out of control. So let's go to Ange. I mean, it's going to be hard because we kind of have to answer every question. Like, well, if Kane stays, this, and if Kane goes, this. But what is... Everyone's talking about how much attacking is happening in preseason. I haven't been able to watch any of the matches. I mean, what's the system? What's the style that Ange likes to play?
Yeah, sure. So there are no surprises if you've watched Postecoglou's Celtic. So essentially, he plays a 4-3-3, but in build-up, it becomes a 2-3-5. So you've got the 2 centre-backs. You have inverted full-backs next to a deep-lying defensive midfielder. The inverted full-backs tuck in, but also are able to shift wide as and when play dictates that. Then we have this kind of front 5 where the wingers are extremely wide, then the 2 number 8s are very high, and the number 9 is through the middle. But the 8s drop in to receive and create triangles. They take turns in supporting the striker. And then when we don't have the ball, it changes into a 4-4-2 with one of the 8s, which it seems like will be James Maddison, remaining in an advanced position to press the opposition. So the forward and then James Maddison's 8 press the opposition as much as possible, backed up by the 4 in midfield, and then the forward defence are normally around the halfway line because we're playing an exceptionally high line under Postecoglou.
I mean, I love it. It's fun, at least, right?
It's high risk, high reward. It's a throwback to what we saw under Pochettino all those years ago, and we're very, very, very excited about the type of football we're going to be playing, having watched a couple of seasons of to be honest, dross. Conte had a lot of success in his first year with Spurs, but even then, the football wasn't that great. It was fits and starts. It was low block and counter. And although he definitely got some good performances out of some of our players, it was not fun to watch on the whole.
Yeah. So I'm surprised to hear about the fullbacks inverting, because a lot of people in fantasy are talking about Udogie. And, I don't think Porro seems to be starting, but if he was starting, how attacking these two could be, right? And how far forward they're getting, and they're in the final third. But do you think they'll be not that attacking, like maybe playing that more inverted midfield role? Or how do you think that works?
So this is a big talking point amongst Spurs fans. Firstly, which fullbacks we pick, and secondly, like what they do in their roles. And there's no denying that a big part of the role is securing the midfield and making sure we have enough bodies in there. Firstly, to allow build-up, and secondly, to prevent us being counted on time after time after time. But they definitely do some attacking. They do quite a lot of attacking. And Destiny Udogie is ridiculously attacking. He wants to be the number 9 all the time. He wants to be in the opposition penalty area. He is so fun to watch. He's been,
I love it,
like 100% my favourite player to watch in pre-season so far.
Okay.
I've loved watching him play. He'll start the season because Reguilon seems kind of out of favour. Sessegnon is injured. Ben Davies has only been used as a centre-back so far. So I think Udogie is nailed to start. I think he's a really good pick. On the other side, so Emerson Royale has had a bit of a redemption. So you might remember, I don't know how well known it was amongst sort of non-Spurs fans, but he got booed off by his own fans at one point last season.
I mean, he got booed off by us on the podcast every week, but
and rightly so. He is Emerson Royale is not a good attacking fullback. He is very, very bad at crossing. He's very bad at shooting. He's not creative. You don't want him in your team, basically.
Nope.
Whereas Pedro Porro is exceptionally attacking, really exciting, relentless with his forward passes, tries things all the time. And I guess the issue with that is we're learning this system under Postecoglou. We're leaving ourselves exposed often on the halfway. There's balls coming over the top, left, right, and centre. We're going to get picked off on the counter. So I think to begin with, Postecoglou will pick Emerson Royale because he's more defensive-minded, he's safer, he's more secure, he's better at 1v1 duels. Personally, I think Pedro Porro is a much better player, a much better option, and I think he will establish himself long-term as our first choice fullback, even in the inverted role when he's used to playing a kind of more outside attacking role.
I feel like it almost depends what midfielders you play, right? Because if you're not playing 2 attacking 8s and you're playing 2 reserve midfielders, maybe you could withstand like a Porro Destiny pushing forward or something like that.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important point. In pre-season, so Bentancur is injured. In pre-season, we've been playing Pat Matar as the sort of right-sided 8. He's much more defensive-minded, and we've often been playing Emerson Royale. So I think to start the season, he'll be more cautious, take fewer chances. Honestly, I think Pedro Porro is a fantastic player, and he'll make the position his own in the long term. But as a result of the kind of uncertainty over the role, I wouldn't be picking either of them for now. I'd have like Pedro Porro on your watch list. But Destiny Udogie is the one for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And what about clean sheet potential? I mean, the defense is sort of like, so we talked about the fullbacks. Van de Ven is in, so maybe he'll be, left center back alongside Romero. New keepers in, it's a lot of change, and everyone keeps talking about the attacking football. Do you think do you think the defense looks okay? Are you in an okay shape? Or are you not expecting clean sheets early doors?
I think it really depends on the opposition. So, Brentford scare me, for example, because they're a counter-attacking team and there will be balls over the top into the channels, and we'll see a lot of our centre-backs running towards their own goal and trying to defend.
Yeah.
And it will leave us exposed, I think. If we're playing against a team that likes to possess the ball, then I think, honestly, I'm expecting Spurs to have an average of around 60% possession. I'm expecting us to have the ball the majority of the time because that's the style we've been playing.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a defensive strategy, because if you've got the ball, the opposition hasn't.
Yep.
I don't think I would trust us for clean sheets right now, but equally, I don't think we're going to get counted on every game. I think the opposition have to be set up to counter us.
Right.
So I think there's some clean sheet potential, but I wouldn't risk it at the start of the season. I'd see how things go, see how the new goalkeeper Vicario settles, see how Mickey van der Ven settles, and how his partnership with Romero goes. I mean, those are two very talented ball-playing centre-backs, but they are both quite risky, I would say.
Yeah,
they
that's
like
one way to
themselves.
put it. It's like a FIFA team that they're creating. It's like everyone's fast and young and cool. And,
exactly.
Let's talk about Matto. I mean, I think Walsh and I, who I do our podcast with, are kind of all in on Matto in fantasy. Just wondering what you're seeing from him, in preseason, what you expect from him this season.
Yeah, I absolutely love him. I think he's such a good fit for Spurs. We've been lacking this creative playmaker since Christian Eriksen left.
Yeah.
And, he's going to want set pieces. Certainly from one side, he'll take corners. Actually, the point I didn't mention on Destiny Udogie is that he scored a header from a corner in the first preseason game. So that's something else to watch out for, like a near post header, a really good near post header. I expect Maddison to rack up points from set pieces, open play assists. He's going to score goals. He's taking lots of shots from range. So the thing that Nathan, who's our kind of tactical analyst on the podcast, picked out was that Postecoglou's Celtic used a player who was taking 1 and 2 touches in that attacking midfield role, whereas Maddison wants to have lots of touches of the ball.
100 to 200 touches.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to feel the ball at his feet. He's an artist. He wants to be the main character.
Yeah.
And so there's a slight kind of adaptation period that's going to happen there. And, James Maddison's a very good player, so it will happen. But I have no doubt that he'll be a success and he'll definitely be starting the season. The only other comment is that Giovanni Lo Celso has made a bit of a redemption. Postecoglou likes him a lot, and he's the obvious competition for Maddison for the same role. So you're probably not going to get full 90s from Maddison. You're probably going to get more like 70, 75 minutes.
Right.
And you might not start every week even. But that's the only reason I wouldn't be picking Maddison. I think he's a really good call.
And what about Sonny? I mean, he had such a down year. He had the hernia.
Yeah.
What are you seeing from him? What do you expect from him coming into this year?
I love the guy. I absolutely adore Sonny. He's so fun to watch. He didn't start preseason especially well. He came back late. He looked really rusty in his first game. In the last game against Shakhtar, he had a poor first half, but he stuck wider in the second half and he looked massively improved for doing that. He found more space. He received the ball more. He looked kind of a bit more back to the old Sonny.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that will continue. He will definitely start the season, in my opinion. Lots of Spurs fans are speculating that Manuel Solomon might start ahead of him. I don't think that
doesn't seem right.
No. I mean, I think the spot is Son's to lose. I wouldn't be picking him for my team, certainly not just yet. The role he's playing is very different. It's kind of more like old school Son, where he's hugging the touchline and he's being asked to kind of beat his man and put a cross in, rather than doing the cut in and shoot thing he did so well previously. So very much watch this space for me.
Yeah. And is it the same on the other side with Kulu? Like, is he staying really wide, asked to sort of like occupy that wide space, or is he in the box?
No, that is true. He's staying wide, which again, it doesn't really come naturally to him. Like, he wants to cut in and shoot. That's his thing. That's his game. Again, he had a really strong second half of the game against Shakhtar, and I was kind of really encouraged that happened. A few fans had kind of been a bit down on him. after last season. He had a poor year.
Yeah.
But I think that was mainly systematic. Like, he's clearly a very talented, very good player. And I don't really have too many doubts that he'll find some form.
Yeah.
But again, it's Solomon and for the type of player he is, loads of fans are kind of up for seeing Solomon start on one side. He's a touchline hugger. He has that kind of low center of gravity, the kind of rocket boot acceleration where he can just burst past a couple of players out of nowhere, where Son and Kulusevski need a bit more of a run-up. Like, Son's really fast, obviously, but he doesn't have the same explosiveness in the acceleration that Solomon has. And Kulusevski he kind of relies more on his strength on the counter. So there's some differences there.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I was hoping you were going to tell me that like Perisic was going to start the season at one of the wing spots, because I'm such a Perry guy. But,
well, you know, he's looked really good when he showed up in preseason. He's played very, very, very well, and he fits the system well. But and to be honest, he'll get minutes as a sub if he stays. But there's so many rumors linking him with a move away. I just wouldn't touch him for the time being. Yeah.
All right. I think that's pretty much everyone. That's a fantasy option for Spurs. So one question I'm asking everyone that's been on is, what's a good and successful Spurs season this season?
That's a really good question. I think this is a rebuilding year for us. So I think a good and a successful season would be top 6 with a run in a cup. You know, Spurs used to be a cup team, and we haven't been for several years. I would be very happy if we've finished 6th and won a cup. I'd love the League Cup even. Yeah,
for sure. And then who leads the team in goals this season? Kind of an impossible question to ask with the Kane, there.
Yeah. I mean, if Kane stays, it's Kane. If Kane goes, it's Richarlison. I think that's simple. That's my answer. Yeah.
Yeah, simple. All right. Well, Wendy, thanks so much. Good luck. And, have a good season.
Cheers. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.